Good evening. Hello. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the school committee for March 28th, 2012. We're going to have a number of special guests this evening, so we're very happy to see them here. And a roll call, Linda, everyone is present. Okay. Our first item of business is approval of items by consensus, and Mrs. Benton will bring that.
Good evening, everyone. There are actually 5 items on the consent agenda. I'm adding one. It's right in front of you. It is a request for out-of-state field trip for the DECA team winners to go out to Salt Lake City on Saturday, April 28th, and return on May 2nd to compete in the national competition. So the approval of the minutes of March 14th regular session, approval of the minutes of March 14th executive session not for release, warrants Act 224, 225, 226, G416, 417, L48, L49, L50, and L51, and payroll warrant 31412.
Thank you. I'd entertain a recommended motion to approve the minutes of March 14th regular session and March 14th executive session not for release. Dr. Quick.
Request to approve the minutes of March 14th, 2012 regular session and the minutes of March 14th, 2012 executive session not for release.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Hayes? Okay. All those in favor? Unanimously? The approval of minutes for March 14th, 2012 executive session not for release. We've done that one. We're going to approve the warrants as read by the superintendent. Mr. Marchese.
Make a motion to approve the warrants as read.
Do we have a second? Mr. Hayes? Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous? We didn't put this in here, so I'm going to entertain a motion for approval of the out-of-state field trip.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Kane. Sorry. The payroll?
No, I'm going to do that in a minute.
Oh, all right.
I was afraid I was going to do this.
Okay, sorry.
I make a motion that we approve the out-of-state field trip.
Thank you. Do we have a favor? And our last one, move to approve the payroll of 31412. Mr. Marchese.
Make a motion to approve the payroll of 31412.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Hayes. Thank you. All those in favor? 6 in favor, 1 abstain. Oh, 6 and a group. Thank you. This is great. Our next item of business tonight, we will not be having the student representative report. It should be at the next meeting. So we have the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. This evening it's my pleasure to introduce our winning Division II state champions, the Wilmington High School boys hockey team. This is history in the making, and I thought it was important for them to come here this evening because if ever I saw a group of young men that truly represent all that is good in Wilmington, it's the hockey team. Under the leadership of Coach Scanlon, they have proven themselves through and through throughout the year. I think there were days that the coach might have thought they weren't going to be seen at the Garden, but they came together. And I think what is so impressed me about this team is that they were a team and that you worked together throughout the whole season. It wasn't about one person being the star, but all working together. And in my heart, I believe that's why we won the championship in Lion B. Franklin. And the school committee wanted to honor all of you this evening and to say thank you, because this does not happen very often. And I am hoping that the seniors and the juniors will come back to the new high school and see that pendant rehung in the new high school gymnasium, because it is something to be extremely proud of. Coach Scanlon has been with us for a long time. He has certainly coached some winning teams, and I think that this is the culmination of all that work all these years. 22? How many years?
21.
21
Yeah.
coaching hockey. What impresses me most about Coach Scanlon And it's funny, I've been teasing him because he's been walking around with a smile for 2 weeks. And Steve is not someone that shows a lot of emotion. And in my watching over the years, that kind of emotion, he holds it close to the heart. But when Mike Lynch was out here last week to do the high five, which will be on TV tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and on Sunday also, it was clear that this meant a lot to him. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Coach Scanlon up to the table to say a few words and then introduce the team. I'm sorry, Mark. Coach, you can introduce Mark.
Could I? Wait, Coach Scanlon, do you mind if I introduce Mark? Because years ago when I first came on the school committee, and then I had a little hiatus, but Mark was on the school committee and he was sitting here. And so you can attain to this someday. Mark DiGiovanni, and he is still giving to the school system, and he is a volunteer assistant coach. And I just think that's so impressive. And I want to thank you, Mark.
Yeah, Mark's a proud alumni, and
Yes.
he's done a great job helping us out this season and in seasons in the past. I want to thank the committee for having us tonight. It's a big honor for us to come. I think it was a great thing for the whole community. Everyone was pulling for us. Certainly our 7th player in the tournament was our fans. They were all shapes and sizes and all age groups, and they gave us a big lift during the tournament, and we're thankful for that. And it really was, these guys were a special group. We've had some teams that have gotten close to winning the title, but to actually do it is what really, like Mrs. Benton said, a culmination of a lot of years of hard work. So we're really appreciative of the players' efforts and the community, how thrilled the community was for us. We really appreciate everyone's done for us. So we're going to introduce you to the players now, and they're a special group for us.
Do you want to talk first or not? Do you want to say stuff first or not? Sure, we go. We're going to. The school committee wants to say some stuff to them first before they come up.
Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Hayes, did you want to?
Oh, putting me on the spot.
I am,
Sure,
'cause
sure.
You told me you had things to say to them.
Oh, well, no, only that, I jumped on the bandwagon a little late. I went to 3 of your 4 playoff games, and, as Superintendent Benton was saying, it was very clear to me that you guys were playing as a team. Amazing goalie, obviously great defense, fantastic offense, and obviously wonderful coaching as well. And, and as Coach Scanlon said, the 7th player, so to speak, I thought the fans were amazing, the student section, very creative chants, some interesting body paint, but anyway, so, and I don't know much about hockey. I watch the Mighty Ducks, and I know the Flying V, but aside from that, I followed you in the media throughout the season. I know you guys overcame a lot of adversity, suspensions, injuries, league change, things like that. So just congratulations on behalf of the entire school committee, and I'm sure others will have things to say. But congratulations.
Does anyone have anything? Mr. Marchese?
Guys, I just want to let you know, just be straight up and honest with you, as I told you, Coach, earlier tonight, I'm not really that big of a hockey fan. To be honest with you, I never really followed hockey, but I did take my son and my daughter, both in 6th and 7th grade, to the final, and they were absolutely amazed, and they absolutely fell in love with hockey, which I thought was great. So you guys did a great job. You played like champions, and again, congratulations. It was a tremendous feat. So congratulations.
Can I tell my story?
Yes.
I have to share this story. On Monday, the town manager and I were at the Wildwood School for the Town Hall. I don't know if you all remember when you were in kindergarten that you studied Wilmington, and the town manager and the superintendent would go talk about their roles. And we walked into the school, and one of the kindergartners is waving to me, and I said, "What's the matter?" She said, "I saw him at the Bruins game." So I said, "Come on up, I'll bring you up to Mr. Kyra." So I brought her, I said, "Mr. Kyra, Amy has something to say to you." She said, "I saw you at the Bruins game." So Mr. Kyra said, "You did?" And afterward he said to himself, I'm thinking in my head, now I haven't been to a Bruins game in a couple of weeks. And I said, "I think it was a couple of weeks ago And was it Wilmington? She said, that's who it was. It was Wilmington. So in her eyes, you are the Bruins. So that was my compliment.
That is good. Do you have any other?
Congratulations.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mrs. Carroll.
Just congratulations.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job. Congratulations. Proud to be Wilmington. Woo! Go Wilmington. Yeah!
I was unable to make it to your games, but as I was sitting in my room reading that night, about 6:30, 6:34, every fire engine and every police car, woo, 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 woo. I said, we won, and I went and told the family, and they were listening too, because we live down near there, and it was so exciting to hear that, and that was my signal that you won. And I think that goes along with what you were saying about the town being so totally, behind you, that my 9-year-old grandson even knew. He said, that means the police cars and they're escorting them, Nana. They're bringing them into town. So that was great for you guys. We're so happy for you. And I'll tell you one other secret. I think I was the first. I am the lone holdout here about electronic devices. I'm having a hard time getting into that generation. And I went online. I didn't do tweets. Did I do a tweet or a blog? But I went online on the Wilmington Patch, and there I was with my congratulations, and I was the first one. I was so proud. I had to tell you that. So you're helping me get into the electric age. So thank you guys. So it spreads, doesn't it, Mr. Scanlon? Yeah. Okay. Now, we'd like to, you're going to love this. We all want to shake your hands, because you're our stars.
We'll introduce them to you.
We thought we introduced them. We're going to have you introduce them.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Okay, first up, listen up, then. First up, right over here is Jack Moran. Jack's a senior defenseman. Next up is our captain, senior Dalton Raleigh. Next up is our stick boy and our manager, R.J. Townsend. Way to go, R.J. With the Bruins, too. Yep, and he works with the Bruins also, yep. Next is one of our juniors, Dylan DiNatale.
Congratulations, Dave.
Next is one of our seniors too, Adam Siegel.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Next is also a senior, Trevor Foley. Next is our sophomore goaltender, Drew Foley.
Glad you're a sophomore, Drew.
Congratulations.
Good work.
Keep it up.
Next is another one of our seniors, Frank Saboni.
Congratulations, Frank.
Next is another senior, Jimmy O'Neill.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Local guy.
Next is freshman Joe Castellano.
Congratulations, Joe. Good job, Joseph.
Next is junior Cam Owens.
Congratulations on the hat trick.
Congratulations, buddy.
And congratulations.
Great job.
You have a career in dancing also?
Next is junior Brooks Carter.
Congratulations, Brooks.
Great work.
Next is senior Joe Russell.
Congratulations, Joe.
Good luck, Joe. Yeah, Joe. Working, Joe. Working, Joe.
And next is junior Joe Giroux.
Congratulations, Joe.
Junior Cam Collins.
Congratulations, Cameron.
Next is junior Anthony Castellano.
Congratulations, Anthony.
Next is junior Brian Pickett.
Congratulations, Brian.
Next is sophomore Cody McGowan.
Congratulations, Cody.
Sophomore Brendan McDonough. Next is another sophomore, Luke Foley. And next is junior Jake Rogers. Can't take it any places without the helmet, right? We had a couple of them missing tonight, senior Dan Creedon and our sophomore goalie Brody Curtis. They couldn't be with us tonight, but that's the gang. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, I didn't drive up because I don't.
Stay low. No, we're going this way. We're going this way.
Jeez. They're not shy.
To be young again.
Would you like someone to
I was gonna say, who's the panel?
They definitely have character.
They do.
A lot of team
pass it
unity.
down if anybody else wants it?
Yeah. I didn't want this. That was nice.
That was very nice.
Oh, we're back, we're still on. Sorry. We so enjoyed that visit from the hockey team. That was very, very nice.
I have two other items under the superintendent's report. The rest of the winter sports season synopsis is in your packet, and also late breaking news. I am passing out packets. We have two finalists for the Woburn Street and Wildwood Principal. They will be visiting the schools next week, and on Tuesday and Wednesday from 1:40 to 2:20, you are invited to go over to the Woburn Street Library to meet the candidates.
Thank you.
We had a screening team of 17 Peggy people on it.
Yes.
Huge.
Great, wow.
Made up of teachers,
People were
parents,
quite surprised
and,
when they came in. Oh, yes.
they did a great job, so.
And could I just say, I don't know if anyone else has ever been on these screening teams, but it is amazing how the cream rises to the top and how people have similar ideas. And so you can be assured that these candidates were,
Did you get one?
in everybody's mind, the strongest candidates that we had for this position. So, thank you. Hopefully you'll be able to get to those meetings. Great.
At those meetings, parents and teachers will get a chance to fill out forms addressing the strengths of each candidate and areas for concern. We will then decide whether, well, to do site visits, whether to do site visits on both candidates or just one. I want to acknowledge and commend Assistant Superintendent Kate Burnham, who's been chairing this committee and has done an awesome job. We had, I think it was 52 applicants. We actually brought it down to 17 that had experience either as an assistant principal or a principal, and then the committee decided on 8 candidates to interview. And now we're down to 2, so we will keep you informed, but we would love for you to be able to attend either of those sessions or both. Okay, calendar.
Thank you. Old business, vote on the 2013-2014 school calendar.
We made the change from the last meeting, the opening of kindergarten day, but this is the draft calendar for 2013-2014. I'd like you to approve it this evening.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the 2013-2014 school calendar? Mr. Hayes.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the 2013-2014 school calendar.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Marchese? Thank you. All those in favor? 6 in favor and 1 abstain. Okay, thank you. Okay. And our next item of old business is the superintendent's evaluation. So if you can take those out, that would be good. In thinking back about last year, how we went around and we all read everything that we had on our evaluation, I ended up calling the Mass Association of School Committees today, because I know in last week's newspaper, there was quite a large article about the things that Mrs. Benton has done as a superintendent, and I wanted to ask them, do we have to all read all of our comments? And I have good news for us. We do not. They said, what you do is, instead of reading all the comments, you can say, I agree with the previous comments. And if you have something on your paper that's extra that somebody didn't already say, then you certainly can say that. But to be redundant and restate 7 times the same thing, or basically the same thing, they said that doesn't make sense to do that. And we don't have to do that by law. So, and what we'll do is we'll collect these papers at the end, and we give them to Mrs. Benton, and then they will be housed at the Roman House after she gets a chance to look at them. Okay, so does anyone have any questions? Okay, so what we're going to do is, I still think it's fair, if this works for everybody, that we start Mrs. Bonish's B for, better go first. I think if we start and go alphabetically around, Mrs. Bonish would answer the first question, and then we'll go forward and see what we have to add to it. Then Mrs. Carroll would answer the climate and culture question, and then we'll go forward from her and go from there. Does that sound all right to everybody? So that we all have a different chance of being first and last in the answering.
Kathleen has a question.
Okay, yes.
What if
Mrs. Carroll.
the one I was supposed to answer, I had no comment for it? Do I just say pass?
Pass, and then we'll start
Okay.
with the next person.
Great.
And then we'll go with you. Yeah, that sounds great.
So we were allowed to pass?
Well, we weren't, but I'm making an executive decision
I wish I
tonight.
knew the rules before I wrote this. Sorry.
Should have called me, I would have told you to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty
Well,
of commentary here.
Do we have any other way that she could handle it?
No, that's fine. I
I mean-
thought, I'm just being a wise guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The boys' team was rubbing off on me there. I'm sorry.
They are, they did.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
You dyed
what-
your hair.
What we'll do is, I will read the comment, and then we'll start with Mrs. Bonish and go and see if anyone has anything to add. So, number 1 is relationship with the school committee. The school committee can rely on the superintendent to make informed decisions that affect the quality of education for the students of Wilmington Public Schools. The superintendent maintains a professional working relationship with the school committee and interprets, supports, and executes the intent of school committee policy and goals and objectives, provides recommendations as requested, and effectively communicates these to students, staff, and members of the community. Mrs. Bonish.
Well, I'll start by saying that I feel like, we do have a good relationship with you as a school committee. But what I wrote is, as a school committee member, I trust that Mrs. Benton makes informed decisions regarding Wilmington schools and students. I have observed that when we ask her to look into something, she takes note of it and comments on it at the next time we meet. And Mrs. Benton forms subcommittees when we all feel that something needs to be addressed or discussed, such as the homework committee or the calendar committee. So.
Excellent, thank you. I'm not going to say excellent, I'm not going to comment on them, sorry. Mrs. Carroll.
I just said, I feel that Superintendent Benton keeps us informed with any situation that pursues.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Mr. Hayes?
Okay. The superintendent is always responsive to my questions, no matter the time of day or the means of communication. It could be an early morning visit to her office, a midday phone call, or a late night email. The superintendent is always quick to respond to my requests for information. The superintendent is omnipresent. She does not work a 9-to-5 job, she works a 24/7 job. I'm always impressed but never surprised when I see her at nearly every school function that I attend. The superintendent consistently provides the school committee with a sufficient amount of information prior to each vote it takes. I cannot recall ever taking a vote that I wasn't comfortable with due to a lack of information. The superintendent encourages school committee members to pursue professional development opportunities through the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and other avenues. And the superintendent is an authority on school committee policy. She is an ex officio member of the school committee's policy subcommittee, and since I've been on the board, she has helped craft approximately 10 new policies, including policies on anti-bullying, concussions, food allergies, and student use of mobile devices at the high school.
Thank you. Dr. Quick?
Nothing extra.
Thank you. Mr. Marchese?
Excuse me. It is my opinion that we as a school committee cannot be as effective as we are without the support and dedication from Mrs. Benton. Over the past year, she has provided the committee with clear and concise agendas, keeping us focused on our main priority, providing the best education possible for our children. She has always been open to not only suggestions, but criticisms, as well as by the school committee. Her willingness to work with the school committee to resolve issues in the district are unparalleled. Over the past 3 years, I've had the opportunity to talk directly with Mrs. Benton on many issues ranging from budget to traffic and parking and to other things that I hear about throughout the district. She has always had an open ear and has always responded to any request that I've asked of her.
Thank you. Mr. Veal?
Mine was short. I just wrote, most certainly, exclamation point.
Thank you. And I agree with what has been stated ahead of time, and I just will add that Mrs. Benton promotes a climate of mutual respect and trust while maintaining a professional working relationship with the committee. Okay, so our next one, we want to pass?
Pass.
Okay, then we'll start with, Mr. Hayes.
Okay, so yes, the superintendent does sustain and expand upon the Wilmington school community's climate and culture that emphasizes respect for individual differences, promotes physical and emotional well-being, and provides a safe and engaging environment. Our school system recognizes that each student is unique, and the school system encourages students to explore their own interests. So Wilmington has an incredible assortment of electives for students, including virtual high school classes. Wilmington has a phenomenal collection of after-school clubs and activities, particularly at the high school level. Wilmington has a phenomenal performing arts department. Wilmington has a fantastic athletic department. And, of course, Wilmington has a zero tolerance for bullying. And through coordinated efforts at all 8 schools, bullying incidents have decreased district-wide over the past year.
Thank you. Dr. Quick.
Okay, I hope I'm not doing any. Mrs. Benton sustains the community's climate and culture by keeping staff and committee involved as much as possible. Communication examples include her notes from the whiteboard, which I always enjoy, and Miss Burnham's in the loop. Maintaining a current website is also important to provide up-to-the-minute information between the schools and the community. Parents are also given many opportunities to have hands-on involvement in their children's school experience, i.e. homework committee, calendar committee, the stress committee. In regards to safety, Wilmington strives to surpass the basic minimum requirements in the new legislation concerning bullying with continued efforts in this area, which will, in turn, provide students a healthier educational environment. The parent survey conducted last year also demonstrates that the efforts are reflected by parent sentiments. I'm very pleased that we've seen such a positive feedback in tackling such a tough issue.
Thank you. Mr. Marchese.
All right, climate and culture. All right. Mrs. Benton was a key figure in the creation and implementation. We were amongst the first communities in Massachusetts to have such a policy even before legislation was created enforcing such action. Mrs. Benton has supported efforts in all of our schools to promote an atmosphere of safety and well-being for our children. I know this personally because I have 2 children at the middle school and often hear about events held at the school regarding anti-bullying. There is nothing secret about what we do here in Wilmington school system. And Mrs. Benton has made it a priority to keep the community not only informed, but also involved in the various committees that she has established throughout the district, such as the Homework Policy Committee, Anti-Bullying Committee, and the Calendar Committee, just to name a few. In addition to her ongoing strong relationship with the individual school PACs, has been fantastic in allowing the parents to be directly involved with their children's schools.
Thank you. Let me see, Mr. Vail.
Well, I agree with all the above comments, and I just wanted to reiterate, I just wrote, excellent leadership on anti-bullying actions. We're very pleased that we were amongst the first to adopt the policies, and as well as the effect that we've seen in the reduction in bullying throughout the district.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. I agree with everything that's been said, and in addition to working with individual groups, the fire and police departments, the town manager and his office to ensure safe and productive schools, Mrs. Benton regularly meets same collaborative local superintendents and maintains a connection with our state legislatures and Department of Education members. Okay. So,
No, it's me.
no, it's next. Jenny didn't go yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Bonish?
Mrs. Bonish.
I'm talking about this same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All of my comments were already said, so I agree with the previous comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next would be educational leadership, student learning,
And I'll start.
and Dr. Quick will start.
Educational leadership, student learning. Mrs. Benton does an excellent job in promoting academic rigor in most levels, striving to provide everything for all is a difficult task in a public school district with a myriad of educational needs with limited funds. I feel she does an excellent job in this area, utilizing all resources possible to create the most challenging environment possible. I'm hoping as funding increases in the budgets, as the budgets and the economy gets better. For the superintendent's future goals, I'd love to see an additional push at the elementary levels, including more tools to further challenge children in areas they may not be challenged enough at, as this is a wish list that continues to be brought forth by Wilmington parents. Though if I had a dime for everyone who hinted that their children was smarter than their counterparts, I'd be making a lot more money. Meaning that she does an amazing job, and unfortunately, the budget's not always, what we want it to be. And I would love to just see in the future goals that we try to kind of push a little bit more towards giving children in the gifted and talented field a little bit more of a push at the elementary levels. But you do an excellent job in the areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank
And
you.
then next we have Mr. Marchese.
Mrs. Benton leads the charge in updating the curriculum for our schools. Education is constantly evolving, and I believe Mrs. Benton has stayed on the forefront of the changes in education and how the materials are presented to our children, such as integrating technology in the classrooms and preparing our kids for a 21st century education. Mrs. Benton has proven this by being a strong supporter of our new electronic device policy at the high school, allowing our students to truly bring their education experience in the 21st century. But our children's education is not just the curriculum alone, but also the many sports programs, clubs, and the countless number of field trips our students go on, and the various school assemblies, all of which Mrs. Benton supports. Combined with an engaging curriculum, I believe provides the best overall education experience any student could receive.
Mr. Vail?
I said, believe there's very good progress being made, no matter what No Child Left Behind says. I would just urge unrelenting pressure to achieve the very highest standards at all grade levels. I would also urge more advanced placement courses and the development of programs for gifted and talented students.
Mrs. Kane?
Thank you. Superintendent Benton models her expectations as she sets the system's tone for the year. It is acknowledged educationally that the most important link is the student-teacher relationship. In all that she does, Mrs. Benton acts to strengthen this bond. Since her arrival, she has gradually shifted decision-making responsibilities based on assessment data to administrators and the classroom teachers. The curriculum renewal cycle groups, math and elementary technology vertical teams, pilot programs, tiered instruction opportunities, guide, inspire, and empower our staff to provide the educational leadership that we expect of them. Mrs. Benton supports educational decisions aimed at resulting in positive outcomes for students and educational success for all involved.
Mrs. Bonish?
Several of my things were already said, but there is so much in this category that I wasn't even aware of some of the things that go on regarding curriculum. Mrs. Benton makes sure there are periodic curriculum reviews based on state and national standards in subjects such as math, ELA, and technology. At the end of the school year, the new science standards will be released and a science vertical team will be formed to do some evaluation. Mrs. Benton helps expand the district's capacity to use data to assess programs and student work with the Aspen system. This system can import data from MCAS and other assessment data as well. This system will be expanded for many more uses by staff and eventually parents, which I believe will be helpful.
Mrs. Carroll?
Pass.
And Mr. Hayes?
Wilmington has a strong curriculum renewal cycle in place, ensuring what's being taught is kept up to date in both content and delivery. Wilmington is in the process of aligning its curriculum with the new Common Core standards. Wilmington has formed and will continue to form vertical teams in each subject area to ensure a cohesive K-12 curriculum and a seamless transition for students from grade to grade. Wilmington has become a student data-driven district. The implementation of the Aspen Student Information System is particularly exciting as MCAS and other assessments can be stored in it, and this data can inform instruction and decision-making in each classroom. And finally, Wilmington has placed a new emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, evident by the new science program being piloted at the lower levels and the upcoming STEM fair for students K through 8.
That's it. This one?
Okay, next one. Adult learning.
Mr. Marchese?
Okay, this is my shortest comment. Mrs. Benton strongly supports Wilmington University in continuing professional development of her entire staff. Our administrators and faculty are our strongest assets, and I commend Mrs. Benton for maintaining a strong relationship with her entire staff and promoting their well-being.
Mr. Vail?
I would continue to encourage the administration and the staff to reward academic excellence on a par that's greater, at a par, on a par or greater level as compared to athletic excellence. Excuse me. So,
Mrs. Kane?
Superintendent Benton models professional behaviors expected from district employees, especially her administrators, through her outside activities that enable her to keep informed. She works closely with school-based personnel and central office staff to determine how best to apply current principles, practices, and research to narrow student achievement gaps. The end.
Mrs. Bonish?
I recently learned of multiple opportunities for professional development in Wilmington, such as Wilmington University, workshops offered by Salem State and Middlesex Project Alliance, Merrimack College, graduate courses, and Teachers 21 for high school staff in 21st century teaching and learning. This one will be great, especially for the new high school. Continued professional development for teachers will increase student learning, and Mrs. Benton promotes this quite well.
Mrs. Carroll?
I think Superintendent Benton has provided them with great opportunity to educate themselves and then to bring it back to the classroom.
Mr. Hayes?
Wilmington is recognized as an innovator for its Wilmington University concept. Our teachers at no or little cost to the district is a creative, cost-effective model of providing professional development. Wilmington collaborates with institutes of higher education for professional development opportunities. Wilmington, for example, offers its teachers to enroll in graduate courses through Merrimack College. The classes are taught in Wilmington and at a reduced tuition. Wilmington collaborates with other school districts for professional development opportunities. Wilmington, for example, is able to coordinate through the sharing of other districts' professional experts and resources through the SEAM Collaborative. Wilmington collaborates with consultants to provide professional development opportunities. The organization Teachers 21, for example, is providing professional development to the high school staff in 21st century teaching and learning. And finally, last year I got Mr. Ruggiero, so this year I felt I had to get Ms. Burnham. So Superintendent Benton made a fantastic hire when she brought Assistant Superintendent Kate Burnham on board. Ms. Burnham has done a wonderful job, among other things, managing the district's professional development programs.
And I think everything has been said, so I'm all set. Okay, next one.
What do I start?
Well,
Oh, the next one is technology.
Technology. Mr. Vail.
I said there's lots of progress being made and prudent, well-thought-out investments have been undertaken. I would suggest the development of a 3-year technology deployment plan with appropriate capital budgets. I also suggest a deeper partnership between the school department, the town, and the Wilmington Library to bring open access at no or low-cost Wi-Fi internet throughout the town.
Mrs. Kane?
Okay. Superintendent Benton maintains a close working relationship with her Director of Technology. Once again, her inclusive style is exhibited through the Technology Task Force, which is chaired and overseen by Mr. Ellis. Although a member, Mrs. Benton defines her role in the meeting as one of equal membership. Ideas are exchanged, no one is discouraged from speaking, no idea is too far-fetched, and a lot is accomplished. The responsibility for decisions begins with the members, moves on to the superintendent, and then requests for new equipment and/or policy comes before the school committee. Teachers throughout the system are represented, and their representatives appear to feel empowered to encourage extended use of technology.
Mrs. Bonish?
Mrs. Benton works with the Director of Technology to keep technology current in our school system by approving the replacement of outdated equipment. They're working towards 21st century learning by discussing one-to-one initiatives and working towards getting the middle school to be fully wireless. This will help the students there to be ready for the new high school when the time comes.
Thank you, Mrs. Carroll.
Oh, pass, everything's said.
Mr. Hayes?
So Wilmington is replacing its outdated technology on a regular basis. For example, 55 new computers were recently installed at the middle school. Wilmington is in the process of adding mounted projectors to all its classrooms. There are currently 208 projectors installed district-wide. Wilmington is in the process of adding interactive whiteboards to all its classrooms, and there are currently 94 whiteboards installed district-wide. And Wilmington is making the best use of the technology that currently exists in each school. For example, each school's broadband was significantly improved after the district built a new fiber optic loop around town. And Wilmington is planning on making the middle school wireless, which would allow students to bring in their mobile devices like laptops, iPads, and e-readers to be used as educational tools in each classroom.
Me, ditto. Okay. Next one.
She really got this down.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Good
I
job.
missed
What?
somebody. Sorry, Mr. Marchese.
Wow, just overpassing me.
Oh, good, she caught it, though.
No, I did.
No, not me. It was
Oh,
me.
Wow.
Sorry, Mr. Marchese.
All right. In regards to technology, as previously stated, her support for our new electronic device policy and its implementation at the high school has made a huge impact in the education experience at the high school. But also, Mrs. Benton has been creative in using limited resources to add new devices such as printers, monitors, and new computers all throughout the district where they can make the most impact.
Thank you. My apologies.
Okay, financing and budget.
Mrs. Kane.
Oh. There we go, thank you. Superintendent Benton has developed a clear and concise budgeting system. She has established rapport and interacts comfortably with her administrative leadership team, the school committee, the town manager, the finance committee, and town meeting. The amount of respect she derives from each of these groups is evident. In addition, she and her Director of Finance, Paul Ruggiero, continue to streamline the process to achieve the objectives that they seek. The process seems more efficient each year. Also, the superintendent presents custom presentations throughout the process that represent multiple hours of work. Our increase this year reflects once again a mutually acceptable outcome to the budget process.
Mrs. Bonish.
Mrs. Benton annually presents a very well-thought-out and researched annual budget. She recognizes the need for updating our facilities and is often able to secure grants for many of the renovation projects, especially the ones that involved energy savings.
Mrs. Carroll.
Pass.
Mr. Hayes.
Wilmington does not charge any student user fees. According to the Massachusetts Public Schools Survey of Fees, Wilmington is one of just a few schools in the area that can make this claim. I always like to pick on Tewksbury. So our neighbor Tewksbury, as an example, charges $150 per sport, $75 per after-school activity, and $100 for a parking pass. Wow. Wilmington received $1.9 million in grants this year, including kindergarten enhancement program funds, which are critical to the district's ability to continue to offer full-day kindergarten. Wilmington is cooperating with the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, and the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials to ensure Wilmington receives its fair share of educational funding from the state and federal government. Wilmington, for example, recently fulfilled State Auditor Suzanne Bump's requests relative to a survey on the unfunded mandate of homeless transportation. Wilmington continues to get greener, not maybe as greener as some of us would like, but greener and identifying more opportunities for cost savings through conservation and energy efficiency. And finally, Superintendent Benton is always able to secure the support of Town Hall for educational investments in this community, from a 3.5% increase in the proposed FY13 school budget to seemingly multiple capital school improvement articles on the warrant every year, to the great work of the town's public buildings and other departments. The Wilmington Public School System enjoys a strong relationship with the town side of government. And that relationship starts at the top with the superintendent and town manager Kyra, the best 1-2 combo in the state.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, he didn't say everything I was planning on saying. Okay. Mrs. Benton has continued to maintain a thriving school system in a difficult economy with a limited budget. She was able to help reduce the preliminary budget by $630,000 without taking away from Wilmington's core standards, and was able to make necessary structural and technological changes at the schools as needed. What I truly appreciate about Mrs. Benton, amongst other things, is her ability to get a job done. She goes after the money where it can be found, either through educational foundation funds, local businesses, grants, etc., to prove in areas that money isn't readily available to get done what is needed. For example, resulting in the new windows and a cost savings to the town. Mr. Marchese.
Thank you. The town of Wilmington has been in a unique situation when other towns are looking at dramatic cuts. Once again, we've been fortunate to experience modest increases in our school department budget. With that modesty, Mrs. Benton has been careful not to overreach in her expectations for the school budget and has a keen sense on how to appropriate for the budget and for what is best for our students. Ms. Benton has not been shy about asking for additional funding in her initial budgets, which she should do as superintendent, for if you never ask, you will never receive. We as a committee and as a town have been conservative in our approach to budgeting, and it is an approach that Mrs. Benton knows and respects and works hard to keep the school department budget within the financial means of the town without dramatically impacting our students' educational experience.
Thank you.
Mr. Vail.
I just want to compliment Superintendent Benton on the excellent development of budgets and in gaining the needed approvals in very difficult economic times. Looking ahead, I would suggest adding an Office of Institutional Advancement and Alumni Affairs in forthcoming budgets, and this is something I've mentioned to her before.
Okay. Thank you. Next, facilities and space utilization, Mrs. Bonish.
I want to highlight the superintendent's work on the high school building committee in this category. Mrs. Benton works diligently on the high school building committee, which in turn has resulted in the historic, overwhelmingly positive vote to build a new high school in Wilmington. This is an ongoing project that she continues to contribute her time to. This goes very far in helping the education of the current and future students of Wilmington.
Mrs. Carroll.
Pass.
Mr. Hayes.
The superintendent chaired the high school building committee, and make no mistake about it, without her efforts in particular, she was the driving force. Without her, there would be no new Wilmington High School. All of Wilmington's schools are well maintained, evident by the middle school, which, I guess depending on who you ask, hasn't aged a day since it opened more than a decade ago. Wilmington continues to regularly receive town meeting approval for capital improvements, including window replacements, roof replacements, door replacements, boilers, fire alarm systems, painting, etc. And the district will soon be developing a comprehensive strategic plan with public buildings. Wilmington, after all, has 6 schools at the elementary level that are 42 to 57 years old. Wildwood, 1955, Butwell, 1960, North, 1962, Woburn Street, 1963, West, 1964, and Shawsheen, 1970, continue to receive a bunch of capital improvements, but for planning purposes, I will be glad to see a prioritized list of the future short-term and long-term needs of each building. Wilmington has reaped the reward of Superintendent Benton's drive to apply for grants from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, resulting in savings of approximately 50% for the recent window project at the Shawsheen and the, knock on wood, upcoming window project at the North. And finally, Wilmington maintains a fantastic classroom size ratio, 19 to 1 at the elementary level, 17 to 1 at the middle school level, and 19 to 1 at the high school level.
This is a perfect opportunity. Mrs. Benton would like to share something with us.
Hot off the press. I was at the MSBA this morning. There were 69 applicants for the accelerated repair program. 17 were accepted, and the North Intermediate Window Project was accepted. So, very pleased.
Congratulations.
Excellent.
Will it be done this summer?
Oh, does that mean it will be done this summer?
Next summer.
Next summer? Okay. I have nothing new to add after that one. And Mr. Marchese?
I also have nothing new to add to that, so.
Mr. Vail?
Mine's not new, but I want to say it anyway. Tireless and effective advocacy and planning on facilities, including tremendous work on the new high school building project. Thank you.
And Mrs. Kane?
Thank you. Everything has been said, but I wanted to make this point. Members of the high school building committee attended a minimum of 20 meetings. Mrs. Benton attended all of these, plus probably as many working committee meetings in between, pertaining to the details as well as trips to MSBA in Boston. She never took a day off to make up for these hours of additional time beyond her regular duties. She still attended student activities throughout the system. She would have something in the morning on a meeting and be meeting all day and still be going to student activities at night. And I think that's extremely commendable. Thank you.
Next, personnel management. Did you want to read? Do you want to read this or no? Or just start? No? Okay, all right. Mrs. Carroll.
I pass on that one, too.
Okay. Mr. Hayes?
The superintendent keeps the school committee informed on matters related to collective bargaining. For example, 2 school committee members are members of each contract negotiation team. The superintendent keeps the school committee informed on matters relative to performance standards. And for example, the superintendent has played and will play a pivotal role every step of the way when the school committee and the Wilmington Teachers Association negotiate the state's new teacher evaluation standards into the teacher's contract. The superintendent keeps the school committee informed on matters related to professional development. The assistant superintendent issues a professional development report to the board multiple times a year. The superintendent keeps the school committee informed on matters related to grievances. The board meets on an as-needed basis to discuss grievances in executive session. And the fact that so few grievances are filed and rise to our level is a testament to Superintendent Benton and the way she runs her department and her relationship with the WTA. And the superintendent is responsible, either directly or indirectly, for the hiring of all school personnel. And by and large, I find the faculty and staff of the Wilmington Public School systems to be professional, caring, passionate people who love their job and are very good at it.
Thank you.
You never leave me anything to say. Any superintendent has a tough job dealing with unions, tenures, and being able to perform the duties of a boss unencumbered. I do not envy her position. However, she does an excellent job of acquiring and maintaining an excellent staff of caring, strong professionals and keeping the committee informed of appropriate matters of bargaining, standards, professional development, and grievances. Mr. Marchese.
Mrs. Benton is well respected amongst the administration and staff, and the fact that we've not had any personal issues come to the school committee for resolution indicates to me that Mrs. Benton has managed personal issues, if any appropriately, and I commend her on her efforts.
Mr. Vail?
Excellent job! Exclamation point. Not easy to do with all of the unions, federal and state standards, and tough budgets. Thank you.
And Mrs. Bonish.
My comments have already been said, so I agree with the previous comments.
Okay. And yes.
Me too.
Mrs. Kane.
I just have very little to offer beyond what everybody has said, with which I agree. Superintendent Benton maintains high expectations for her staff, but none that she does not hold for herself. Foremost in her management style is that we are all about the successful education of our children.
And lastly, communications and public relations, Mr. Hayes.
We should put him at the end.
And actually, some of what I used under this section, previous speakers had used under another section, so I'm going to keep it a little briefer than what I had been doing. But yes, the superintendent does ensure that staff, students, parents, and the community are kept informed of the mission and the accomplishments of the school system. And yes, an atmosphere of trust and mutual respect is encouraged. Wilmington has a strong relationship with
every occasion to recognize hard-working staff and students. Once again, in my evaluation of Mrs. Benton, the results achieved far exceed the requirements of the job in all areas.
Mrs. Bonish?
Superintendent Benton ensures that everyone is kept informed of school issues and events. The school websites are kept current. I personally am fine with the website.
Now it's on.
She sends a weekly newsletter to staff. Parents receive email communications, and the Alert Now system is utilized for especially important news.
Mrs. Carroll?
I kind of just said the same thing. Alert Now is great, and I do think the website is updated regularly too, so I do like it too.
No.
The gauntlet is down.
No, I think Mr. Hayes just wants to update it. Like, he likes the information, but the look and appearance of it.
I'm going to give him
look.
that project.
As an example, as an example, check out the Shawshene Tech High School website. Just saying. Okay.
All right, did everybody get to
Yeah, everybody got that.
All right. If we could just all bring our things over to Mrs. Benton. Mrs. Benton, if you'd like to comment at another meeting, or
I'd just like
If you'd
to
like to
thank
comment
you
now.
all for your very kind and generous comments. I talked earlier this evening about being at town meetings at both Boutwell and Wildwood this week with the town manager. And in both places, the kindergartners had asked, did I like my job? Told them I love my job. And that when I get up every morning, I have a smile on my face because I know I'm coming to Wilmington. And the accomplishments that you talked about this evening really don't have anything to do with me. They have to do with the incredibly caring, hardworking staff that works for Wilmington, including all the administrators, as well as, excuse me, as well as central office. So I thank you on behalf of them. And I would definitely encourage Mr. Hayes to work with me on an exemplary webpage that we can bring back in the fall.
Will do.
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, new business. There is no new business tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Benton. Next item is delegations. No delegations tonight. Other reports, subcommittee reports. Oh, yes. I know we have some.
Two, actually. Well, one is just the reminder that the WEF Vendor Fair is Friday night, 7 to 11. Very excited. Everybody, please be there. Support your educational foundation in the schools. Yes, Mr.
Where is it?
Marquise.
Where will it be held?
Knights of Columbus, 7 to 11. Thank you for reminding me. And March 21st, I attended the School Health Advisory and Wellness Committee. Just a couple, they talked about a lot of different things, but a couple of really interesting points that I wanted to bring up was in school wellness, the North Intermediate, what is her name? Who's at the North?
Jane Ferrara.
Mrs. Ferrara. She initiated a blog for Physically Fit Fridays on Tumblr. So she has a blog about Physically Fit Fridays. And this program to be featured during state meeting for promising practice presentation. And she's also has a video project currently underway as part of this presentation in her blog. So I thought that was pretty exciting. And then at the West, they're starting a before-school walking program. They either have a letter or had a letter going out to parents, and they're hoping to start after April vacation. So when kids come to school, they'll have the opportunity to get some exercise before classes. Mr. Shaw attended a program at the State House and shared information about cognitive development of the brain in relation to exercise. So some of the research, which I've known for a long time, but some of the research is showing that exercise, to start the day off really helps actually improve test scores and get the body going for a nice long day at school. And then one of the things about physical education and health, with the new high school construction beginning soon, Ms. Stinson is looking into creative PE activities, yoga, et cetera, to, get around the some of the issues they might have with structures, being able to do PE in the high school. Prepackaged salad, so the kids could buy those, and she said it's going really, really well, so that's exciting. And lastly, April 12th is the Employee Health and Benefits Fair with a theme of Being Well in 2012. Some of the vendors are Autism Speaks, Respiratory Therapist, American Cancer Society, Diabetes Association, and I'm pleased enough to be there also. I'm excited to be there, so, and that's about it.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Excellent. And did I miss it, or did we, we did, talked about it in the beginning. Yes, Mr. Hayes?
Just I have a quick report myself, but just a quick question for Superintendent Benton. Dr. Quick mentioned food services and Mrs. Palin, and I was wondering, you had sent an email last week about the whole pink slime situation, and I'm wondering if you could just briefly talk about it publicly and what we're doing in response.
When that news came out,